Hello everyone, my name is Jolene Schaefer, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, A Day in the Life of a Construction Project Manager, The Impacts of Acumatica, presented by Mike Duberstein of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation. It will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our 2-question survey. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mike.
Thanks, Jolene. And thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. I suppose it's the middle of the night in Australia. If you're in Australia, go to bed. We'll just send you a recording. Today, we're going to be looking at what it's like to be a project manager in a company that's utilizing Acumatica. We'll start with a brief introduction to the webinar, and then we'll move on to project accounting functions. We'll briefly cover reporting, and then we're going to make our way to project management features in Acumatica. We'll also show how a PM can utilize their mobile app to manage their project. And finally, we'll take a few minutes to answer any questions we've received via chat, as Jolene mentioned. Feel free to ask away as we move along. Okay. Oop. Got it. Next slide there. There it is. About me. Before we get to the meat of what we're all here for today, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Mike Duberstein, and I'm a solutions engineer here at SWK. I've implemented 4 ERPs, which is typically what I say when I'm doing demos, but I don't actually often delve into the depth of my construction experience. But today, though, since I'm going to be pretending that I'm a project manager, I figured that I probably should go a little bit deeper into what I've done in the construction industry in my career. So out of college, my first job was a billing specialist at a small commercial construction company that did work for chain restaurants. I did that for a little bit, but then they kept on moving me up through different departments, including managing the administrative duties of their field service department. And by the time I was done and left there, I was their contracts manager. And so what their contracts manager did was, since the PMs weren't all trained in the ERP we were using, I was kind of the surrogate PM. They would send me data, raw data, and then I'd import it into the ERP. I'd print and review job costs. I would make sure that the job was transitioned from the quoted stage to something that could actually be used by operations in order to run the job. And then when I moved to Maine a few years ago, I took a position as an office and contracts manager for a small design build firm. I did everything from banking and bank reconciliation and accounting to ordering snacks for the office. I would handle AP bill approvals. I, again, was doing job cost reports. And once again, I was actually the only person that knew the ERP that we were using. I was hired initially to bring it live, and that's what I did. But then we didn't ever get anyone else into the system. So I would enter all the data and was basically the sole user, I guess the true definition of a power user for that ERP that we were using. After about a year there, the company I started my career with hired me back to project manage a nationwide initiative that a national chain restaurant was undergoing to refresh the millwork in their dining rooms. I actually managed the progress of those jobs, did some light scheduling, and then visited close to each of the 500 restaurants to create punch lists for each site. So I've been around the block. I've seen PM processes done efficiently, and I've also seen an instituted creative workaround being used didn't actually provide effective tools for managing certain processes. Now, one brief example that I actually used was DocuSign to manage the AP invoices at the design build firm I worked for. What I'd do is I'd put a virtual stamp onto the document with places for coding, and then send it off to the PM for coding and then a signature, which was a pretty good system for a workaround. But as we'll see a little bit later on here, that we can do better than that. Okay. So what I would want to do here is get into Acumatica, and what I also want to describe in today's scenario what it is that I'm going to be doing here. So I am taking on the role of a PM that's been working for a construction company that's been live in Acumatica Construction Edition for 6 months. I'm going to be drawing on the things I saw and did in my career in construction to compare and contrast the PM's job before Acumatica and their job after Acumatica. As we go through a day in this PM's life, please take note of how user-friendly the interface is, as well as the ease of accessing pertinent information. These are overarching themes within Acumatica, regardless of what module you're using. So what made this company, which is aptly titled Construction Company, buy Acumatica? Well, we outgrew the smaller non-construction specific accounting software and decided to go with Acumatica. We wanted an ERP that gave us plenty of room for growth, and we also wanted a system that was designed with the construction industry in mind. I've been thrilled as a PM with the differences that Acumatica has made in my day-to-day job. As I complete part of my daily tasks with you here, I'm going to be reminded of the hoops that I had to jump through before and how easy it is to accomplish those things now that I'm in Acumatica. So let's go ahead and start by looking at the project record. Okay, so this is one that we're going to look at today. This is a hotel that I am the progress manager for. Let's go ahead and hop on into it. Now, before we really delve into this, I just want you to take note of all these tabs that we have here. Now, everything can be managed that we're looking at right from this project record, which is a total game changer. I can view past invoices, assign specific employees to this project. As we'll do a little bit later, I can create change requests right from here. I can catalog union locals. I can assign equipment to the project. And I can even manage compliance here, like certificates of liability insurance. But one of the best things about this is actually the fact that I can do some light job, or actually some in-depth job costing even right from this project record, no reports necessary. So what I did before for job costing was that I had to wait for weekly reports to be run. And if I wanted more detail, I had to specifically ask for the transaction record associated with a particular cost code or cost group. But now what I'm able to do is get in the project record, get a live look at job cost progress without ever running a report. And now I'm able to do deep investigative dives to see what the costs are comprised of. So let's take a look at this. I've started off in the balances tab here, and as you can see, really this is a high level view of the performance of your job by account group. So we have revenue, we have labor, material, other, and subcontract, and it's just showing us the performance, the committed versus actual, the budgeted versus actual, and we're just able to get a flavor for how far along we are with this job as a whole without really getting into the weeds of particular sub-jobs, particular cost codes. We can just see overall where are we at. Now in the revenue budget, I'm able to come in here and see how much we billed for compared to how much we've budgeted that we're going to bill for. And I can actually come in here and create pending invoice amounts. And this is my schedule of values where I can actually create a pending invoice and then create a pro forma invoice based on the schedule of values that I'm filling out here within the system. But I think most useful is the cost budget tab. Now this is a lot of information that we're looking at here. But what I can do is hop in here as the project manager and hide these selected columns. So, for instance, if projected completion percentage is something I don't really want to see to clean it up, I can easily hide that information. I can also click and drag and drop these columns around so that I can see things in the order that makes sense to me. As you can see here, this is all the cost codes. And one thing that I can do is filter. So by account group, if I want to see account groups that are associated only with labor, all I have to do is click the header here like I've done and just write in labor, and now all of a sudden I can filter and look at everything that's associated with labor. How far along are we with this? So what I'm looking at is the performance percentage here, which is important to me. It looks like we're at 90% for the project manager, you know, and with only 50% of the project done, maybe we need to do a change order for that. We might have under budgeted those hours. So I can look by group, I can look by cost code. I can really get very specific with this information. So let's go ahead and clear this filter. Another thing that's really wonderful about this is the ability to group by task. So I can pull everything into subjobs and see the progress by subjob. It's kind of something in between the cost codes we were looking at and the balances we were looking at, because I can see all that information by subjob, and it shows me my performance by subjob. So it just really helps me monitor how things are going in any level of detail that I want to see, from overview to very granular. Speaking of granular, let's get even more into the granular. And I want to see everything that makes up this cost code. Okay, you know, we're looking at the actual amount of $10,311. What is making up that amount? Well, when you get a PDF report, it's kind of hard to tell what's making that up. But here from the project record, all I have to do is click View Transactions. I don't want to save the outstanding changes. And all of a sudden, it's going to pop up every single thing that that is associated, that's making up the cost for this particular transaction. So, you know, this one in particular is a superintendent. A lot of this is labor and time cards, which makes tons of sense. But I can use this, I could scrutinize for anything that might be a little bit peculiar. Hey, like for instance, this one, the unit rate is you know, for labor, $1,300, almost, you know, $1,350 there. That was definitely coded wrong. There's something a little bit wonky with this. So it's good that I'm able to look into this, because it's taking up a pretty big chunk of the percentage here, and it might not be right. So it helps you find these red flags. Okay, great. So now that we've gotten to take a look at the job costing, I wanted to briefly touch on change orders a little bit here. I can manage these change orders right from the project record, which is a pretty big contrast from what I was doing before. What we were doing before was entirely in Excel, actually, and we would have a folder where we'd keep the change orders, and sometimes we'd have multiple change order spreadsheets, and sometimes we'd have multiple tabs within the change order spreadsheets. And it was kind of disorganized. It was pretty clunky. It certainly wasn't very owner forward facing, and it was just kind of difficult to manage overall. So I'm going to show you that we can manage these change orders right from here, but let's go ahead and hop in and create one, because it's something I can manage. Not only can I manage it right from the project record, but I can actually, and I'll show you this, send this out to the owner directly from Acumatica. So let's go ahead and fill out, say that this is, I'm super creative today, change order number, I think we're up to 9 at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and put in cost budget. We had talked about the fact that my project management was running a little bit, seemed to be running a little bit close. We needed to do a change order for that. So we're going to do a labor change order to give myself a little bit more room to breathe here. We were close to 90%. I think what we probably need to do is give myself at least 2 more weeks to manage this full time. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to hop over to the revenue budget, and I'm going to increase the revenue so that we end up getting paid for what we're doing here with the additional project management. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 1, and the amount, we're trying to mark it up about 30% or so. So I think we're going to probably end up putting in this total, it's $4,000 cost. So I guess what we would want is something like $5,700. And look at that, we're right at about 30%, which is a nice healthy markup. We'll leave that be and just save our progress while we're here. Another thing is that you can associate change requests to this change order. Now, this is a previous change request. Looks like we've got a hole in the wall on the ground floor that needs patching. I'm going to actually add this change request and close. And that I'm also going to go in and do a subcontractor change order. So let's see which one we want to pull. We're going to do one for toilets and bath accessories. We're going to add like 20 more toilets to the hotel. So the current, it looks like the current is at 88,000, and what we're going to want to do here is up this to $100,000. That's $1 million, not great. Okay, and it looks like it's giving us a warning sign because that's above our budget. And we're gonna also, so we're gonna forget about this for now. Actually, we'll worry about doing a subcontractor change order at some point in the future. But just note that you can actually manage these types of commitment change orders right from this record as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this off of hold. And this is pending approval. You can see here that I can email this change order out to the owner, have the owner look it over, sign off on it, and then I can come back in and approve it. Let's just take a look at what it looks like to have a change order in Acumatica. And you can see here that this is just a pretty standard change order form with room for signatures for both the contractor and the owner. And we are integrated with DocuSign, so we're able to send that right out to DocuSign and have both parties sign electronically if that's what you're doing. We can change the branding, obviously, to match your company's branding, change the colors. It's the report designer is a pretty neat feature, something that's pretty easy for either us at SWK to help customize, or if you're feeling a little bit brave, you can get in and mess with it yourself. I've done that myself, and it's pretty user friendly. Okay, great. So now let's move on to purchase orders here. I'm going to go back to the project record. Looks like I went back to projects. So bear with me as I get back in here. And we can manage just like we were managing change orders from the project record. We're going to be managing purchase orders from the project record. Before we click into this, though, I want to say what we were doing before, because what we did before actually is that we would just take this job number and give it to the vendor. You know, we'd call them and say, hey, we need all this lumber. And then they'd say, what's the PO? And I'd say 1002 hotel. Now, sometimes I'd forget to include the number. Sometimes the vendor would mess it up and put the wrong number. Sometimes there would be no number. And so the AP clerk was pulling her hair out because when an invoice would come in, there wasn't clear documentation as to what it was associated with. She didn't even half the time know what PM to track down in order to code it. So she would put it in one folder, the PM would say not me. She'd put it in another folder, the PM would say not me, and it'd have to be this huge conquest to try and figure out what on earth this invoice goes to. But and now that we're generating POs in Acumatica, we've been actually utilizing that feature. And one thing before we actually dive into creating one, I wanted to point out is that having that ability gives you a whole nother category of things for job cost reporting. This committed category that we're talking about here, which helps us with forecasting and gives us another point of comparison to see how much projected cost is committed versus how much is actual, is just another layer to really help you manage and control your cost. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hop in and create a purchase order now. And we're going to go with the handy go-to vendor, and we're going to say we're going to get material for the job. Extra creative. And we're going to just call this material, associate it with our project, pick our sub-job, general requirements, and we're going to select construction development costs. Order quantity, we're going to say that it costs 450 bucks. We'll save it. And now we can print the PO and view it, and we can actually send it right to the vendor from here as well. So you can see it's a pretty standard, simplistic form. Again, it's customizable and configurable, but this is something that is really convenient to be able to send this out to our contact over at the vendor, and they can kind of take it from there. Great. So this is also true of subcontracts. We can very easily create subcontracts and manage subcontracts right here from within Acumatica. So so now I want to move on to reporting a little bit here. And as I alluded to, I used to have to wait for live reports to be printed out in order for me to review job costs. These days, though, between living in the project record here and utilizing dashboards, I can actually control job costs without printer reports pretty much entirely. So let's take a look at a couple of these dashboards. We have the project overview dashboard, which just gives us a view of what all these different projects are. Maybe these might not all be associated with me, but you can see I have the ability to have bar or pie charts, bar charts. I can have line or like plot. I can have plotted charts and all kinds of trend lines, and I can even have job site cameras here, inquiries. Really, all of this stuff is totally configurable, and you can design it to be anything you want it to be. I want to look specifically though, while we're here at the project manager one, because this is what I would be living in on a day-to-day basis as a PM. Now, before we do look into this, I want to say that before, we actually didn't have anything remotely close to dashboards in our system. And honestly, it was pretty easy for things to be swept under the rug. But now, just at a glance, I could tell where my projects are at in a very visual way. And as you can see here, I'm managing a ton of these projects. I got 29 active ones, and I have 47 late tasks. So, you know, maybe I'm not the best project manager in the world, but maybe I've been overloaded a little bit here too. So this is something that is really helpful. Just when you log in, you could set this as the login screen, and that's what I've done actually, so that I have what I need to do right in front of my face, and it's not easy. It's like it'd be very difficult actually to sweep this type of thing under the rug. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of these. Because you can, the thing that's great about this is all of this you can click into it, right? So I have change order logs, project issues, and all I have to do, I can add anything I want here with a new widget. I can edit the criteria, all that type of stuff. It's all live. You can have it update live. You can have it update every half an hour so it loads quicker, but very convenient, makes it very easy to manage your job. So let me click into the late project tasks here, and it'll bring up an actual inquiry of project tasks that are we're actually past the planned start date on a lot of these, I would guess. So it looks like it just gives me, I can click into this and then use this as a jumping off point to actually execute what I need to execute for a given day. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to point out is AIA billing. And before what we were doing, because AIA was something that we still did have to deal with, was that I'd have to get with the billing specialist once a week or once a month whenever we were billing, and I'd have to sit there and help fill out this AIA form that we had in Excel. Sometimes it wasn't that big of a deal, but sometimes honestly it was a huge pain. I mean, depending on how big the month was, we probably had tons of costs associated trying to figure out how much to bill for. And it wasn't really all that easy. Now, what we have is a standardized AIA form that prints automatically based on my schedule of values that I fill out. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this report so we can take a look at it. And as you can see, it's a standardized form. I mean, this is the acceptable standard in the industry for AIA billing, and this is the cover sheet. And if we're gonna we'll go on to the continuation sheet. And you can see that we're billing for 3 things here, it fills it out without me really having to do anything except for do what I'm already doing. So that's saved a ton of time for both me and a lot of pain for the billing specialist, and it's really been a total delight. Great. So we've spent a lot of our time so far looking at the project accounting aspects of what Acumatica has done for us. But beyond the project accounting, Acumatica has also made us more efficient in terms of actually managing project processes. So let's just take a look at this screen here. This is the project management suite, and we didn't have the capability to really do any of this stuff within our last accounting system. All right, so one thing we're not going to hop into and do today is photo logs, but one thing I also do want to point out is as we move through this, notice how much these things really move or work together. You know, I can create a change order from a project issue. I can associate a project issue with a daily field report, you know, things of that nature. Oops, I did not mean to click into that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the drawing logs first. So before, what we did was keep drawing logs in a shared folder with a naming convention that helped us understand what discipline the drawing was for and which drawing was the current one. It was a little confusing, but honestly, it worked out okay, with a couple of hiccups, right? Now the drawing logs are all here housed in Acumatica, and I can use filters to easily pull the current log by discipline. Not just by discipline, but also by subjob, also by project. And I can have this filter so it's only showing the current drawing only. Unselecting it is showing me the entire archive. And when I go back to what's current, what's really great is that this one that for my hotel that's an architectural floor plan, I can see that there's something attached here, and I'm just going to double click on that, and look, I'm bringing up my plan. So that being able to get that easy access to it, it's the same as, I mean, the convenience of pulling up these PDFs and JPEGs is the same as being in some type of hard drive folder in terms of ease of access, but it's all housed within the same place associated with the same job number. So that's a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into this drawing log. And as you can see here, we have room for revisions. I can create new revisions, and I can just kind of detail what this is for. I can relate it to different documents, and it looks like this one is actually already related to a request for information. And I can email the drawing right from here. I can create an RFI or a project issue right from the drawing log, which is really great. So the workflow is pretty clean and smooth going from one thing to the next. Okay, so from here, what I'd like to do is actually create an RFI. So we've looked at this plan and we've determined that there's something wrong with it. It looks like I'm downloading that. And I'm going to go ahead and create a project issue or an RFI for it. And while that's loading up, what we used to do with RFIs was send emails to the firm that was handling the particular drawing in question, and we would just manage everything through Outlook. It was kind of difficult to remember to follow up at times. We would have like various categories, you know, those colors, and put them in folders and flag them. But when you're using Outlook to manage a whole litany of different things, it really gets cluttered, and it's hard to it can be a little bit hard to manage. So being able to manage everything right from Acumatica has been a game changer in that regard. And one thing that we've been doing, and I'll show you the report that shows you every single RFI that's outstanding, but I also have created an inquiry that shows me all open RFIs, so that again, it's just right in front of my face, and I can't forget about it even if I wanted to, which sometimes I do. So let's select who our contact is here. He's the support engineer, Alberto Jimenez. This is information. And let's say that we are wondering, should the closet be so close to the entrance? And we can say whether or not the RFI is incoming or outgoing. And I'm going to go ahead and put in this information here in the question. And when it comes back, I can put the answer in here as well. I can format this information here with bullet points, point A, point B. So you can make this look very professional. And let's just go ahead and say that there's, because we're waiting on this and it's dependent on the closet to move on with something, there's going to be a little bit of a schedule impact potentially of 3 days. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this. We can associate it with a subjob if we want to, but we can email the RFI right from here. And if there is a cost impact, we could convert this to a change request right from here as well. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and print out this RFI so we could take a look at what it looks like. So again, you know, pretty minimalistic, but clean and professional, and just, you know, gives us an idea of what needs to be done, and gives a space for an answer. So definitely gets the job done here. Let's take a look briefly at the RFIs outstanding. Now, what I want to do is select all of them that are open, and essentially what this is going to let me do is I've run this report, and now I can see all of the RFIs that I have outstanding, and I can resend them right from here. Okay, so it's almost virtually impossible for RFIs to slip through the cracks based on the way that we're managing it with this report and also with the inquiries that we have set up. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is actually pull up my phone here and talk about managing, project managing through my cellular device. So before Acumatica, we actually didn't have much help for managing projects in the way of what we would do on the mobile device. But now, because the mobile app with Acumatica includes for free is available, I can actually do some powerful things on my phone that really help me manage my project from anywhere, and especially from on site, which is great. So let me go ahead and log in here. You can see that the native functionality of using my fingerprint can be used to log in, so I'm not typing in a password every time, and it's secure. Just loading up here, and what I want to do first is take a look at approvals. So before we were doing AP approvals with a literal folder with invoices that were stamped, I'd have to come into the office and code the invoices on a piece of paper and then hand them in to be entered on our old accounting system by the AP clerk. But now the AP clerk just scans and imports the bills first, and all I have to do is look at the approval on my phone and code it. And the invoices that are associated with a purchase order are especially easy to do. Okay, so let's take a look here at the approvals. And I'm going over to all approvals, and let me just go ahead and break the meta here and say the reason that it's not in my approvals right here is because the environment we have set up here has a two-tiered approval map set up, and you can see here that we have the same invoice, actually this invoice 002150 set up for two different approvals. That's because we have the AP clerk and the operations manager that's actually set up to approve, and I'm set up as the PM. So this wasn't routed my way, but since I have administrative privileges, I'll be able to actually get in and approve this. But all that to say, there's no need for there to be a two-tier approval. Really, any type of approval map you want to set up, however many stops you want the invoice to take on the way to getting approved, you can do that. If you want it to be over a certain amount only that gets approvals, you can do that. It's a very flexible system that helps you manage your AP bills and code them very effectively. So let's take a look at this particular bill. Okay, looks like it's pending approval. It's from go-to vendor. It is for about $2,000. So let's go ahead and hop into the document details. Looks like we're ordering a rebar. That checks out. And now in the document details, it looks like we have expired compliance, and it looks like the cost code isn't present in the project budget, and it also looks like the PO number and PO receipt number isn't in there. So to me, somebody goofed. I would think, maybe the AP clerk is new or something to that extent. They weren't really scrutinizing it. They got distracted. So I'm going to need to have them scrutinize this again, and I'm going to draw their attention that we have expired compliance, and also the cost code isn't found in the budget. So what I'm going to do is actually go in here to the notes, and I'm going to use the microphone capability here so that I don't even have to type this out. And I'm going to say expired compliance, period. Also no purchase order, period. Also got a warning message that the cost code was not present in the project budget, period. Okay, and now that that's in there for my notes, I'm going to go ahead and reject this and get the AP clerk to look at it again, because it doesn't seem right. Maybe they need to go back and find the purchase order that it's associated with, and that should hopefully clear things up. Okay. So another thing I wanted to point out with all approvals and my approvals, you could see here what I have is change orders and purchase orders as well. All these types of transactions we can set up for approvals. We can also have time set up for approvals and things of that nature. So you can manage those right from your phone, and that's a really convenient thing, not having to come into the office to grab a folder to look at this stuff. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was project issues. So let me scroll down here to find them. Looks like project issues are here. And before, what we would do was I would write down project issues or email and call about them, but they weren't at all associated with the project record in our old accounting system. And there wasn't like a log or anything like that to easily view the past issues. Now, though, I can actually enter project issues while I'm on site right from my phone. I can also view project issues on a dashboard that I had created for me, so I can identify overarching patterns and address them. So overall, it ends up being a much more effective tool. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter a project issue. Entire building collapsed, which is no good, obviously. We're gonna associate that with the project we're working on here. We don't have a type set up there. We're gonna leave the sub job there, since a building collapse is gonna affect every single, I would imagine it would affect every single division. Let's call this a field report. And we're going to say that it's a pretty high priority, actually, meaning we're probably going to have to start over a lot on this. Schedule impact, if we do move forward with it, this is going to be 356 days. There is a cost impact, actually. Everything that we're going to have to mitigate the disaster that we did, and we're going to have to start from scratch. So I think this is probably going to be something like a $9 million cost impact. Is that 90 or 9? Whatever it is, and we're going to go ahead and add a description as well. I have to click view edit description. All is lost. Abandon all hope. Hopefully you never have to enter a project issue quite like this. Great. And now if I wanted to, I could also take a picture with it and associate that with the project issue. So I'm going to go ahead and save this one and just take a brief second to hop into the Acumatica computer version again here and take a look at what we're seeing on the project issue side from this dashboard that I made for the CEO of a company that had trouble managing their RFIs and their project issues in the system that they were using. So here, what we have is something I like to call project issues by month. And you can see here we have a pretty standard, okay, maybe 2 per month per project, except for it looks like all of a sudden for this particular project, we've had a spike here of 6 issues. So you can see what I'm saying here, that I can figure out what the problems are, and you know, okay, maybe I need to investigate a little bit more. I'm just going to click into this project and see if there's anything in common between the issues. Okay, and here it looks like it was pretty easy to identify what the issue was. Here we have that Bartholomew fell down a manhole. We have that Bartholomew he actually accidentally injured the foreman. Hopefully it was accidental. We have it that he got stuck in the concrete. We have an issue that he backed a truck through the storefront of a Starbucks. We found out that he can't read, which it would be helpful. And then it became an issue that he just came into work. So really, I think now as a PM, I can take this information to my boss and say, hey, look, we got to reassign Bartholomew, or tell him that construction just might not be his industry. You know, maybe he goes into some other type of less destructive industry. Okay, so with that said, let's hop right back on into the mobile phone here. And we have the next thing we're going to be looking at here is daily field reports. So what we did before with daily field reports is that we didn't really have them, to be honest with you. Again, it was a lot of emails and it was a lot of phone calls. And we'd have a weekly meeting to discuss everything that was going on. But it wasn't like a very formal process. Nothing was associated with the project. Again, no logs to view easily what was happening. But now we still meet, but I'm able to fill out these daily field reports so that we can actually review those during our meetings, and our meetings have become a lot more detailed and productive. And my boss has been all about it. So let me go ahead and associate this with our project. And you can do a lot from here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enter employee time, for instance. This is great, especially if you don't have employees that aren't really all that great at entering their own time. Being able to do this for them on a field report rather than on a time card is a big deal. So let's say that Alberto was working on masonry. We're going to associate this with the cost code 04. Say that he was doing the composite walls. It looks like we have a little bit of an issue with the cost code not being present in the budget. We're going to ignore that for now. He was in at 9 a.m. and we're going to say he put in a pretty standard day, a little bit long, 9 hours. It's all billable. We could say that he took a half an hour for lunch, actually. So I'm going to say that he was here on site, but he took a half an hour. So we have 8.5 hours for masonry. And if I wanted to take a picture of Alberto to prove he was on site, I could easily attach that. So I have that labor activity saved. That'll hit my job cost once this is approved. I can pull change requests right from here. Let's see if there's one I can associate. So I actually need to, I can't generate one right from here, but I can, if I've done a change request during that day, I can associate these change requests with this daily field report. So that's great. I can do change orders right from here. I'm not going to do that this time. With subcontractors, I can go ahead and say that the subcontractors were here on site. My trusty old go-to vendor working on masonry with old Alberto. And we're gonna say that they were doing the glass for the masonry cost code. They had 2 workers on site. They were working for 9 hours, and it'll actually do this calculation for me where it shows how many working hours was done by the subcontractor. Any notes I want to put in, I can do as well. So I can associate that with the project. Okay, I can also associate project issues with this daily field report. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the one. Looks like, let's see, our foreman is missing. That's no good. And I can pick from all those other old ones. And same with photo logs. I can associate a photo log with this daily field report. I can also attach photos to the field report specifically. Any notes that I want to take, I can put in here. I can go ahead and make a note of the weather, which I'll do here really quickly. Let's say that it was 0% cloudiness. It was clear. The temperature was a perfect 62 degrees, and that it was very mild. It was maybe 10% humidity, if that. Really no precipitation. 2 mile per hour wind, very light wind, just a perfect day to be on the job site. Perfect day to be on the job site. Great. No delay, and we can add more descriptions if we want. I know that Acumatica with this 2020 first release is going to be actually putting in an API integration with a weather service that will do the weather right down to the street level, so you don't have to fill this out manually either, and it will project the weather in the future as well, which is really helpful for a lot of people in the construction industry. Okay, so I can go ahead and associate equipment with this daily field report. I can put employee expenses to this daily field report. Really the last thing I'm going to do here though is go ahead and put in a visitor. And I'm going to say that the owner showed up. The owner heard that the building collapsed, comma, and wanted to see how bad it really was. Okay, I can associate it with a business account. I don't have to. I'm going to leave that be. The owner was there not for the whole time. We're just going to say that the owner was there for a few hours, and the owner was mourning the loss of the project. Okay, so they looked at the whole site. And that's our daily field report. So really comprehensive tool, being able to associate it with everything else that we were working on here as project managers. Now that we have this done, it's on hold. I can approve it right from here. And I want to go ahead and hop back into the computer version to show you what the printed form looks like, okay? So daily field reports, And it looks like this is the one we just completed, 0006. Lo and behold, all this information's here. And as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and hit print and email. We could email this off to anyone that would find it helpful. But as you can see, again, it's a form that we can change, but it has all of the stuff right here for anyone that would find it helpful. And not only that, so it has all that information, which is great. It looks like I associated a photo with this one, maybe earlier as I was setting up for this. But what's really great is if you see the blue hyperlinks here, I have the ability to go ahead and hop into these things and do some investigation. I can say, what do you mean our foreman's missing? Click into the project ID, and then bam, it takes me right to the project issue. And if there were more details here, I could see what they were talking about. I could look at pictures that are associated with it, things of that nature. So it ends up being very helpful, and it's not just a dead historical document. If you're looking at it in Acumatica, it can be a very live feature that you can use for investigation. Okay, great. So the last thing I wanted to look at here before we open it up for questions is the fact that we can do expense receipts right from the phone as well. So for instance, if you're a project manager on site and you need to run out to Home Depot to get a couple of things, whatever you need to do, we have the ability to essentially capture those expenses right from the job site. And what I used to have to do was actually just save all of my receipts and physically hand them in once a month or whenever I was in the office. It was tough to keep track of, and occasionally I'd lose a few receipts. And I'll tell you that the AP person that had to enter those receipts really hated that. I think they said it was their least favorite portion of their job. So really now what I'm able to do is manage these expense receipts right from my phone, and it couldn't be easier. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a new one. Printed out a nice Home Depot receipt there, and it's trying to grab what portion of the receipt is here. So I just got to do that really quickly. If it was a regular receipt, it wouldn't have done this, but since I printed out a receipt on a piece of paper, a little bit of an issue. Went to Home Depot to get a bucket of nails. There we go. And I'm going to associate this with an expense item. I'm not going to actually code this to my project just for the sake of breezing through this pretty quickly. Let's say that this ended up being $23. We're going to save that. And right from this expense receipt, I have the ability to claim it and turn it into an expense claim. So you can also associate multiple different receipts to this expense claim and claim a bunch of these different receipts at once, like in a monthly sort of instance, which is, I think, a pretty common practice for a lot of AP folks. Okay, so additionally, beyond all of the stuff that I've shown you guys today, Acumatica plays well with others. So as my company grows, we know we'll be able to really easily get any additional products we may need in order to grow. And a few products that we're considering in the future are ProEst, which is a really sophisticated estimating tool, just like unbelievable, like cream of the crop in terms of estimating. Procore, which is an advanced project management tool that will like read a lot of this information and allow you to edit the drawings and put notes and hyperlinks in between drawings. Smartsheet, which really helps with resource planning and schedule management, including like a Gantt chart. And then one of my personal favorites, which is Avid Exchange for AP automation, that essentially reduces the burden on our AP people in the office, and everything is automated and even can be paid automated with just approvals if that's what we wanted to do. So today we've covered the specific processes for one particular construction company based on the experiences that I've had working in the construction industry. But Acumatica is a remarkably flexible system, so it can accommodate construction companies of any size and any type. Really, not just construction companies, but any company. There's a lot more to the Acumatica Construction Edition, including job cost forecasting, WIP reporting, and project quotes, among other things. And I'm absolutely happy to set up an in-depth demo for anyone that'd like to see those features that are specific to them, but we just didn't have time for that stuff today. So now what I'd like to do is actually open up, I'd like to open up for questions here, if I can get the PowerPoint to show. There we go. So questions, any questions?
Thank you, Mike. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the question section of your GoToWebinar, and we'll give that a minute in case any come through. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And it looks like we do have a few that came through. So the first one is the mobile app an additional cost?
No, the mobile app is actually included with whatever modules that you're getting within Acumatica. The mobile app is actually included with those same modules as well at no additional charge.
Perfect. And then we have another. In your experience, what is the biggest reason a construction company should leave their legacy software and consider implementing Acumatica?
That is such a great question. I think the biggest reason for leaving a legacy software is, and going with Acumatica, is the growth potential, being able to have unlimited users based on their pricing model at Acumatica. It's commercial transactions, so how many AP invoices or AR invoices you have in a given month is your pricing model, and beyond that you can have as many users as you want. So you could, even if you wanted to have like subcontractors with a particular login to get pertinent information, you could get very creative with that information and not have to worry about your premium increasing by any means. The one other thing that I'll say about what makes Acumatica really a special thing over legacy other products is the fact that there's the interplay between modules. If you have a bit of a complicated business structure, maybe you're doing projects, but you're also doing some sort of manufacturing or some type of field service, or like maybe we've interacted with people that are doing light construction with an e-commerce level to it. So if you're doing something like that that's got a lot of complexity to it, there's really not like a legacy system certainly wouldn't be able to handle all of that within one system, and that's where Acumatica really shines. Great question.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.